This is Easthaven County in beautiful Massachusetts, and it's got a massive problem following the Economy 2.0 update, because their county is in the worst imaginable position for this economy overhaul. As you can see, the footprint is really big, so I've bought a ton of tiles that I now have to pay for, and to make matters worse, the average level of development of each tile is pretty low. We've got massive sprawling rural areas, we've got big vacation resort areas with only a couple of hundred people, and the total population is 12,000 people. Not only is it spread out, but it's spread out across 4 land masses connected by a bunch of bridges, and these bridges, they act as choke points for service vehicles. So altogether, this means that providing adequate service coverage to make people and businesses happy is just that much harder. And as a result of all this, things are looking bad. So in this episode, I'm obviously gonna try and fix all this, and spoiler alert, it's gonna get real muddy. Okay, so I'm just gonna make a quick comparison between the Easthaven economy pre-Economy 2.0 and post-Economy 2.0. So let's have a look at how things are looking. So this is how taxes, service fees, service trade looks in revenues. We've got a bunch of expenses. We've got a new expense all together here in tile upkeep, and then service trade is just massively what? Okay, but I mean, I provide all these services within the county, so I am gonna need to disable this, that's for sure. So yeah, before we conclude anything, I'm just gonna disable the city policies here, and then I am going to let the simulation run for 2 months and get back to you, and then we'll do a proper comparison and kind of see where the city ends up. Alright, we are back, and it's been a bit more than 2 months because it's later on in the day now. That little maneuver, those 2 months, that basically cost me what, 1.6 million credits. So I've lost more than 10% of my cash reserves just by letting the city run for 2 months. And I've even gained, 3,000 new taxpayers, and that hasn't made a dent. Anyways, I think it's pretty obvious we've got a massive challenge ahead of us, and it's a pretty realistic challenge we've got now, because with so few people spread out over such a large area, the real challenge is how do we provide adequate service coverage to these people without costs running completely amok. And the way I tried to do this before the Economy 2.0 patch is to provide some services that have helicopters on them. So like the Memorial Fire Station here, which has a helipad that is very used, but just look how expensive this is. And the hospital, this is the same deal. The helicopter is in constant use just due to the super long distances. I know I can use the tiles mod to repurchase the exact tiles that I would be needing. And that would probably help quite a bit, because the tile upkeep is about 1/3 of my total expenses, which is quite a bit. But I think before I go into something like that, I'd like to just try and fix the economy without doing that, because I think that's going to be more challenging and potentially a lot of fun, potentially a massive failure. Either way, it's probably going to be interesting at least. We've also got plenty of demand, so just expanding the tax revenue base of Easthaven County is probably something that we need to start doing pretty soon. But I do want to keep the rural low density feel of the entire county, so I don't want to completely change everything just to make a buck. Yeah, I know I'm not a very good politician, but we can't spend a dime more on service upkeeps than absolutely necessary, and we need to make some hard choices here. And this East Memorial Fire Station here, it has to go. I mean, it's a really cool feature. It was a nice upfront investment. I don't see how we can sustainably use this with the amount of money it costs. So I'm gonna have to pause the game, and I'm gonna have to remove this bad boy. I really enjoyed using that asset. I enjoyed seeing those helicopters, and if we get a little more cash on our hand in the future, we're gonna implement it again, because I think it's a fitting feature for a region that has the geographical features that Easthaven have. But for now, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. So let's just get a firehouse instead. The upkeep of the firehouse is 10,000 credits a month. This one was 117,000, and then it has even more employees, and you pay for employees now as well, which is it's perfect. I really like that feature. But I think we're just gonna start with a small firehouse, and I mean, if everything burns down, then this is embarrassing. But let's just hope that's not gonna be the case. We're gonna be renaming this as the, let's just see, it's gonna be Chowder Bay Fire Department Firehouse. Yeah, nice role playing. And then I'm going to grab this firehouse row, which is a custom asset I grabbed from PDX Mods, and I think I'm gonna place that up here in West Point. It has 2 vehicles, which is only half of the firehouse, and the upkeep is 8,000 compared to 10,000. So there's more bang for the buck in the firehouse, but there's an important detail here. This one is a third of the price, and it has less than half the employees. So we're gonna have to pay fewer salaries basically. So hopefully this is gonna be sufficient, and we won't have like a major catastrophe up here in West Point. Just gonna get that placed so we have some coverage here at least. And obviously I need to name this right. So West Point Fire Department Firehouse Row. Yeah. Actually, we're gonna go for Downtown Station. The Show Text Trends mod came out right as I'm recording this, so now we've got a live feed here, and fortunately the deficit isn't as bad, still pretty bad, and the service coverage is obviously worse because, well, at least we've lost a helicopter pad, which, yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see how fires are then actually going to react given the distances. Our happiness level has also dropped. Yeah, it's gonna be so challenging to manage this. So I think one thing we have to do is we have to cleverly repurpose some of the land we'll be freeing up by removing some of these massive service buildings. And I think this provides an obvious opportunity to expand the hill, so provide more row housing here so that we have a continuous stretch of row housing between the hipster-filled the hill and the less hipster-filled downtown and Northport. So I'm just gonna move in and grab the alley here. Sorry, get in. I'm so glad I have Anarchy because it's complaining. Yeah, and I'm going to disable snap to zone grid because that should make my road construction business a little easier, and some of the zoning layouts they provide a little more logical. I complained a lot about this in the previous episode. You guys corrected me. You can actually get around this if you actually enable or disable the proper snapping options down here. Although I will say I would like for it to just be more intuitive right out the gate, because yeah, you have to disable that each time and it's super frustrating. And then I'm just gonna make sure that I can zone the right segments. A couple of you have recommended the zoning toggle mod for road construction. I might look into that, but I really don't mind using the keys to just quickly try and align some of the zones. Anyways, there's a bit of transitional phase here between this row house density and downtown, so I think it's fine if we just try and squeeze in a few of these mixed-use developments. And I can already see here that this zoning isn't aligned to Coleridge Lane. It's only aligned to Hickory Lane, but we'll fix that in just a minute. I'll start getting some row house zoning in here. And I'm fine with just leaving a bit of space here where we can add in some trees and bushes. This should provide a bit of an extra tax boost and some population, of course, so that's really nice. And we are once again happy, so I think we are lingering right on this super happy and this Karen sorta happy, not really happy. I want to speak to a manager happy. We'll add some more zoning, but I'm just gonna move in with the pavement path here, break up this. We'll do this, and then we can get a bit of zoning in there. So I've just expanded the hill districts as well as downtown, because I think we're gonna need to specifically assign services to cover certain districts. Otherwise, it's going to get pretty messy once again, given the scale of the county. Now, something that's going to be very hard to manage here in Easthaven is our garbage collection. And the reason is that if you don't get this right, then the debuff you get for not picking up garbage is quite substantial. If we check the local hospital here, we've got a garbage piling up issue, and if we move our cursor over efficiency, we see that it's a 50% debuff to efficiency because of garbage piling up, which is insane. Not only is this probably the most expensive structure I have in the city, but it's only functioning at half its efficiency. Yeah, our garbage collection is handled by this big recycling center up here in the port of West Point, but there are two issues here. One is the cost. It's very expensive. It has 32 employees. And another issue is that despite having 15 garbage trucks in use, then the location just, I mean, the garbage trucks, they have to take such a long route to actually reach their destination. And we can see just how many of these 15 are actually in West Point, because I guess if, you know, as soon as garbage is ready for pickup, they're going to grab it at the shortest distance they can, which is kind of starving the rest of the county for garbage trucks. So I don't see any other solution than to actually demolish this recycling center and then try to strategically implement some smaller recycling centers throughout the county. So I'm just gonna pause the game here, and yeah, we're gonna have to get rid of this. I am going to replace it with a garbage management facility, and I think I'm going to grab the rural recycling center here. Now, this is a custom asset, and the upkeep at $300 a month might seem, you know, arbitrarily low, almost exploit-ish low, but it actually has 20 employees, which is more than the small recycling center. So even though it's still less expensive than the small recycling center, it's only a little less than half the price, which is still a very good deal, but it also does have 2 fewer garbage trucks. So I'm going to utilize a few of these throughout, and hopefully that's going to help solve some of the issues. And I'm probably also going to need to designate specific districts for my garbage collection system here. I guess the good thing here is that we once again find ourselves with a bit of land, which we should be able to repurpose. So I'll just grab a road here, drag that out so that we've got a bit more zonable industrial land here. And let's see if we can just get an alley more in place. Something like that. And we've got healthy demand all around. I haven't touched my taxes yet, so that's probably why. Let's just get some more industry going. And while we're at it, let's just add some preemptive detailing. Just a bit of quick detailing. We've done this many times before with our industrial areas. It's a very, very quick way of just adding some extra character, making the area look real good. So I'm just mixing the 2 different types of pavement surface here, getting the alignment as good as I can. And let's see, where can we actually snap to? Oh, down here, great. We'll jump into decals, we'll grab some of these large stains here, we'll just reduce the brush size a bit, have anarchy on so that they can freely be placed, and just gonna spam them. And it's gonna look real good when this actually develops. And I think I need to pause the game now, because as long as we've only got this rural recycling center, we are living life a little dangerously. And I can already see that the West Point Elementary School is having a garbage pile-up issue, which is just wrecking its efficiency. So we're gonna keep things paused, and then we'll need to find a suitable location for the small recycling center, which isn't that small. So yeah, let's see. Man, the placement of a service asset has rarely been this crucial to my city's survival, which I guess is a massive kudos to the Economy 2.0 patch. This is much more enjoyable in that weird, suffering, painful kind of way. What I need here is a location alongside a major road that provides easy access to the island here where we have Chowder Bay, because that's the primary city we need to ensure we have full coverage here. But I also want this recycling center to handle Cape Rose, Victoria Beach, and these resort areas here, because there's not a lot of services out there, so generally those areas don't produce quite as much garbage. I'm kind of inclined to... yeah, I'm gonna demolish some stuff. Yeah, there's an added level of like, it's more serious when you remove taxpayers' houses now, I guess, due to your complete reliance on good tax income. But once again, I think that's a very, very positive effect of this new patch here. So I'm just going to add like a few additional roads, make this road layout here overly complex, because that's very realistic and quite fun. And then we're going to place this polluting recycling center close to Mill Lake. But it's only got low pollution values, so I don't expect it to like be a big issue or anything. But yeah, I think this placement is okay due to the districts that we're aiming to serve with it. So I'm just going to freely place it here, which I think is a pretty good fit. And then for the operating districts, I can't do without having everything a district now, so I'm going to have to create full districts. But I can of course start by assigning some of these, because everything out here is actually encapsulated in a district. And yeah, just gonna create some Chowder Bay districts now. Some fresh districts. Let's take a little tour. I named this Uptown. I think that's a good fit. There's a density transition here from downtown and Sailors Row into some more low density stuff alongside the avenue here. So yeah, I think that was a good fit. Narrowwood and Moonlight Bay. It's kind of giving me MMORPG or World of Warcraft vibes. Which may not be the most realistic naming, but I don't mind. There's a bit of nostalgia there for me, I guess. Pine Grove, pretty cookie cutter, and Pine Hill, which is this little hill here that has yet to see any development. And then I thought it would be fun to name this Riverview Heights, actually, as it's got some pretty substantial views of these. I guess you could say these are rivers that kind of cut through the islands and the peninsulas. And speaking of Riverview, if you've ever had sleepless, restless nights, wondering why can't I get to wear Riverview on my head or maybe on my chest, well, now you can. Oh, I don't know what kind of plug I'm trying to make here, but what I'm trying to say is that I've had a lot of fun recently designing some actual merchandise. So if you'd like to help support the channel and get a t-shirt or a cap in return, then there's gonna be a link in the description down below where you can grab that. And if you happen to buy something and would like to share it, then feel free to send me an email with a picture of you wearing it. And I really hope that doesn't come across weird. It would just be kind of surreal for me. So yeah. And anyways, after that very professional businessman advertisement, I'm going to select some operating districts for the small recycling center. And as we discussed, I'm just gonna select all the districts I've designated in here, including the lake, just in case I do something funky and add some development out here. And then of course we're gonna cover Cape Rose and these adjacent beach suburbs as well. We'll need to do the very same thing up here in West Point, so I think we're just gonna rename this West Point Recycling Center. Select operating districts. We're obviously going to serve the big port of West Point, and all the other districts we've got squeezed in here. Now this still leaves a good old rural cowboy Cape Autumn and Brightwater's. No, it's Town of Autumn now. I cannot look at this anymore. It still leaves these areas without any garbage truck collection, and that's obviously not really gonna work out because we have a few services out here, or at least we are going to have in the near future, because obviously people aren't gonna stay happy out here without any services. So let's just grab the rural recycling center, get that added in here. We've got this cul-de-sac right by the highway here and across from the power lines, which I think is a pretty fitting spot. It leaves a bit of distance noise-wise and pollution-wise to the housing areas. But I think, I mean, even if we designate these districts, then at this rural recycling center, or rather, let's see, Cape Autumn Recycling Center isn't really going to be a very efficient service, and we can't have that, we can't afford that. So I think while we're here, I need to kind of invest a bit of time just developing up Cape Autumn just a bit more, get a few more businesses, a few more housing units, and a few more of those juicy tax dollars in here. Much of Cape Autumn, at least the central parts here where the elevation is the highest, is quite fertile. So we are going to grab the chance to just add in a bit more farming. I prefer not to use livestock farming, as that spawns a few too many vehicles, which I really don't like. So I'm just gonna go for grain farming in this particular case here. Enable snapping, we might as well. And I think for this particular farm here, we're just gonna designate like a really big farm, because that should scale with the workplaces as well. We'll move this farm real close to the power lines here. And actually, I think it would be kind of interesting is if we kind of move real close to it. The government doesn't have to grab more land for eminent domain to create these power lines than necessary, because that's going to mess with the business environment, and we want to preserve the business environment and all those tax dollars. So the farm can nestle its way real close to the power lines here. I'll be adding some forestry surface just for, you know, a small segment of this farm here, just to kind of mix it up a bit. And the cool thing is I can just overlay this and the entire area is still going to be functional. We'll even might have farming vehicles here as well, and the fence is going to be complete. But it is just gonna break up the farming field just a bit and make it a little more interesting. I think a bit of terraforming here is probably in good order, so that we can just kind of soften out the terrain here a bit. Something like this, and then get in a few trees as well. At least here in Denmark, it's very rare that the actual household isn't surrounded by a few trees, so that you don't just have your field right next to your house without any breakup. Taking a look at our production tab, more specifically our materials here, the biggest deficit when it comes to agricultural industries is cotton. So I guess it's going to be a good idea to just add a bit of cotton instead. So let's see, that textile fiber is probably what I'm looking for then. And we'll just add in a farm here so that we can try and cover a bit of that import deficit, get some exports going instead. I assume that's going to be quite beneficial then. Get a full farm going. I'll once again be breaking up this filter into 2 segments just to make it a little more interesting. It's a bit of a shame that this agricultural texture here doesn't have a few variations that would automatically be cycled through, but I guess it is rather easy for us to just use surfaces. Let's check our production tab. Oh, it seems that the effects were actually very quick. So we've not got our 5-ton deficit anymore, but we have a pretty healthy surplus. So yeah, I guess it just quickly we're able to employ all the people needed and has a pretty high efficiency as well. and the company is called Cheap and Random. Okay. Guess you might have noticed that I'm importing a lot of coal each month, 21 tons, and of course the main reason is the Chowder Bay clean coal power plant here is, well, burning through 21 tons a month, and it provides pretty much half the electricity currently provided in the electricity grid. The other half is provided by the Cape Autumn wind turbine farm here in the very northern parts of the county. So I'm hopeful that we've got some deposits we can use out here if we check our natural resources, and then I'm just gonna filter all this away. And we've got our ore deposits, which is what we are gonna need for coal, and we've got a really nice belt of ore deposits here on the eastern shoreline here of Cape Autumn, and we've got very little development here. We've got some housing units and stuff we won't mess with, and interestingly we've got quite a bit of ore right near the wind turbine farm. So I think we're gonna create a bit of a special area where we on one hand have some green energy being produced here, and then on the other hand we're also wreaking havoc on the ground to extract some coal. So I'll just be creating a small straight segment of this lane here connected in either end. Hopefully I can get just a somewhat symmetrical look. I think this is fine. Then we're gonna grab our coal mine here, free placement, just so I can push it a bit back from the road. Something like this. And then obviously I'd like to see the deposits, although I won't necessarily follow it super strict, and I might go beyond the circle here with anarchy. Snapping is off, which is perfect, that's what I want. So I think I'm just gonna try and snap a bit to the just to the edge of the lot here. That usually looks a bit better. 90 degrees, there we go. And then I kind of want to make something interesting where the existing forest area here is something that kind of has to be preserved. So the coal mine can't encroach too much on the existing forest, and we'll probably be adding even more trees actually. And then we're of course gonna go around the platform here. For the wind turbine, we're gonna go around these foresty bits. We'll see how this looks. I'll be adding a bit of detailing. Hopefully I can make this nice. I think this is the first coal mine I'm creating in Cities Skylines 2, to be honest. So yeah, there's a first for everything, I guess. Alright, let's just get this linked up here. And I'll just pause so that we can provide some electricity, and could go underground here, but we've also got some stuff over here. So maybe just adding some above ground power lines. That adds to the aesthetic as well. Don't know if it's actually more expensive or less expensive than digging them down on the ground, but yeah, aesthetics it is. And then obviously the water piping here will have to go below the road. Otherwise a certain legendary YouTuber is gonna come after me. So we're gonna adhere to the rules here, make sure that gets connected up, and that should pretty much be functioning. It's gonna be interesting to see just how much this is gonna change this setup here. Oh, we're now able to export 52 tons of coal a month, at least as it's currently looking. So yeah, I guess that's actually quite a substantial change. Anyways, we can definitely make this coal mine here a little more interesting. So the first thing I want to do is just do some very simple terraforming, where I try to create these kind of plateaus that you sometimes see in these mines. So I'm just going to find a contour line, then I'm going to right click, and then I'm just going to smoothen the terrain following that contour line to the best of my ability. I'll find another contour line, highlighting that I am at a different elevation, and do something similar, and then just kind of move with a few meters in between and add in these. You might have guessed it, I'll be adding some decals. I'm gonna go for these lightly stained large here, so that they're not, you know, they don't fill too much, they don't completely end up dominating the area, and then I'm just gonna add them throughout. I'll just find a small variant as well, just to add a bit of variation. Get a bunch added here. I mean, this is a dirty workplace, that's for sure. So with that added, let's see if we can grab a prop, a coal truck of some kind. I'm pretty certain, yeah, it's this black one here. Just gonna move in, add in a few of these. I think that would be very small but efficient way of detailing this place up. Getting these added to the mix. And then we had the tree situation, obviously. So wherever I have this border here, I'm going to add a bunch of trees so that it's clear why the border is where it is. Now, of course, this also has something to do where, you know, the outline of the ore deposits is, but I'd also just like this natural barrier to be in place as we discussed. I think considering just how dull a mine like this can look in Cities Skylines 2, which is also one of the reasons I haven't really been implementing them, this is actually pretty good and it feels pretty natural, and it's a super weird dynamic with the wind turbines right next to it, but it's also a bit of fun. And as for the economy, we're actually seeing a pretty healthy impact from these new additions. We haven't even built all that much, but these areas, they generate quite a bit of tax revenue. We can see that we have more tax revenue from grain, obviously. If we move down, we've got, let's see, we've got coal. We've only got a single mine, but I mean, this is a pretty substantial income from just a single business, right? And we've got more cotton in place now as well. So things are definitely improving. I know I said I wanted to avoid livestock farming due to the aesthetics of the areas, but looking at our production, if we close the materials tab and have a look at material goods, then we're importing a lot of what I assume is livestock to actually produce convenience food, because we've got a grain surplus and we've got a livestock deficit. Interestingly, the deficit when we look up here isn't all that big, but I'm thinking it's probably a good idea just to add some livestock farming to the region as well. I'll try to make some smaller farms because hopefully that can kind of help contain these pretty weird looking buildings that are going to automatically spawn throughout. So I'm just gonna try and create a farm here, and yeah, we'll see how it ends up looking. I'm gonna do the very same thing here where we kind of frame in these power lines, because I just think that turned out pretty well before. And I think we'll just do something like this, move it relatively close to this national road segment here and get that placed. And as that is going to grow, we'll probably see some of these sub buildings spawn. It's not that they're necessarily ugly, but they flatten the terrain. So if there's just as you can see here, if there's just a tiny bit of a height difference, then you'll have some issues. Something you can do is just flatten the surrounding area, as I'm doing here, and then move in with the soften terrain tool and make sure not to move from the structure and out, but from the surrounding terrain and in, because that is going to give you the type of like smoothness that you want. And now it's less noticeable, not perfect. It's actually really bad here near the actual structure here, so I'm just gonna try and see if we can make this look all right. But I guess from afar it's not that much of an issue, but I mean, I can't really place these by myself, so it does make it a little annoying. I guess if we're a bit cheeky, then as always we can say trees to a rescue and just add in a bunch of trees here to the farm to just kind of hide the imperfections here, and that looks okay. And it seems that here it's only spawned like a very, very small area here, but if we take a look, it's going to be interesting to see. So we've got a bit of a surplus now for livestock, and then for material goods we've got the same deficit actually for convenience food, surprisingly, but yeah, maybe this is going to change in time. But I think it's time we address the elephant in the room, which has only gotten worse, and that is my inadequate healthcare system. Yeah, I mean, West Point is just a wasteland of people waiting for ambulances currently, and I guess it makes sense because if we have a look at our coverage here, we don't have any localized hospital or medical center over here. We've got our main hospital here in Chowder Bay, and that is it. Now, I was certain that I would have to actually remove this hospital, but I'm not so sure anymore because as you guys can see, I've managed to pretty much cut the expenses in half, and the only thing I did was just replace it. And I think it may be caused by me having placed this while using the realistic density mod, which increases the amount of employees, but I really don't know if that's actually the case. Anyways, the cost is now a little more manageable, and I'm gonna try and keep it for now because I think that helicopter is really useful given the distances we're working with here, but obviously it's just not gonna be enough, and I need dedicated healthcare to serve West Point and potentially even Cape Autumn. But yeah, otherwise I'm just gonna spread my ambulance coverage and hospital coverage too thin, and it's just not gonna work. So I'm going to do the very same thing we did with our garbage collection, and I'm gonna select the local hospital here, which is of course the Chowder Bay Hospital. Okay. And then we're going to select some operating districts, and we're going to go for Chowder Bay as well as Cape Rose and the surrounding wealthy suburbs, just as we did with our garbage collection situation. So we're gonna serve these areas out here, and then we're gonna be hopeful that with the helicopter and the 7 ambulances in use, we won't have to expand upon this hospital here. Of course, this doesn't really help in West Point, so we're gonna need to, I think we're actually gonna need a proper medical clinic here. I'd love to use this rural medical center, but we might be able to use that in Cape Autumn. We're probably gonna need a proper medical center here, and I need a somewhat central location without actually removing too many households. I've got a bit of space here alongside Belmont Street, which might actually just be the best fit. Otherwise, yeah, the terrain here is pretty crazy, so that's probably not gonna work. We're gonna try our luck here in Belmont Street, just going to manually adjust it, move it really close to the road, probably a little closer than we otherwise would be able to without Anarchy. Just gonna retry placing that because that didn't really work out as intended on first try. Once again, we'll move real close here, get that placed. We can always remove some of the bushes and props or otherwise, but yeah, I think that worked a little better. Gonna try and smoothen this out as much as possible. Something like this, and then probably make use of the boulders to try and create like a bit of an artificial wall. Add in a few bushes, a few trees, and hopefully this looks alright. I haven't actually checked from another angle, so I've just been painting away with these boulders, and as we turn the camera it might look completely crazy, but fingers crossed. The important moments, it's not too bad. I'm pretty happy with how we were actually able to squeeze this in and kind of work with the terrain here. We might just add in a few more of these bushes here to cover up some of the surface lines here, and add in a tree or two. These oaks always do the job, covering up all the imperfections, but otherwise pretty good, and all the ambulances are being dispatched. Obviously, we'll say select operating districts, and we'll make sure to restrict these to West Point and all its suburbs, so that we avoid having ambulances cross the bridges here, because they are usually pretty trafficked. I say that and it's empty, but usually there's a bit of traffic here, and obviously it's gonna take a long time to reach your patients. We'll just be renaming this as the West Point Medical Center. just to customize things a bit. And then I think for starters, I'm going to actually try and assign the Cape Autumn districts as well and see if we'll be able to handle that demand, because it's not too bad out here. There is a bit of a distance to cross, so we might need to upgrade this with an extension wing, or probably an ambulance depot actually, to get those extra vehicles in place. But I'm just gonna try and let the simulation run for a bit and see if we can actually solve this health crisis we've got going. While we wait, I've got a water tower to delete, basically, because it's wildly inefficient. I'm paying 15,000 bucks a month for a water output of 30,000 cubic meters a month, and I don't think I need it. I've got a surplus production and a massive sewage treatment service production, or capability at least, so I'll have to delete this. And yeah, once again, something I built mainly for aesthetic purposes. It's gotta go. May be able to add some later if the necessity arises, but checking our levels here, things are looking a little better now, and we've still got a surplus production. So if we move into services and water and sewage, then I imagine we can bump this down to maybe 70%. Let's just check how that works out. Yeah, still around 30,000 cubic meters of excess production, 85. Okay, so it kind of needed to settle, but I think this is fine. And it reduces our deficit ever so slightly. Now, something I've noticed that I'm a bit worried about is that I'm having a garbage pileup issue here at the hospital, despite not all garbage trucks actually being in use here. So I don't know if this is an issue with this particular asset, or whether there's just an issue with how the small recycling center is trying to calculate where to spread the garbage trucks across these two islands. Either way, the efficiency is taking a massive hit due to this. So yeah, it's a little annoying. I think it's an expensive move, but I think I'm gonna have to just try and delete this and place a medical center instead. And it's a little boring as well, because we've got some asset repetition then, but I think I'm gonna have to try. I'll be adding an additional ambulance depot to the building, because it is a pretty sizable area with a lot of people that it has to serve. So I'll just make sure all that is mark up these areas out here, and then we're just gonna let the simulation run for a bit and see if we've got the same garbage issue here. I hope that's not the case, because then the culprit is probably the small recycling center. And with the most recent changes, we are finally turning a profit, a very small profit, and it's decreasing as I'm talking right now. So this recording can turn real awkward real fast, but right now we're turning a profit, and it's only cost us 4 million credits to do so. Yay! Additionally, it seems like the overall happiness level is a little bit better than before the Economy 2.0 patch. We've got a small detraction for unreliable healthcare coverage, which I guess makes sense, as we've got a bit of a flu wave or something in West Point that we're trying to deal with. But generally things are looking really nice, and it's interesting to see this abundance of leisure time. I don't know what factors are, going to play here, but I can only speculate that the rent and mortgage burden is so low in East Point. It's so affordable that people have chosen to work less so that they have more leisure time. I don't know, it's just a speculation. Of course, in the hardcore capitalist grow GDP sense, that's bad. People need to work. But if I'm being slightly progressive, it's a pretty nice thing. And we're in the red again. But I mean, I haven't really touched on taxation throughout this entire episode, and I don't have any complaints of it yet. So I think I'm gonna try and just squeeze an extra percentage out of these top 3 categories here. There's not much to gain from bumping office taxation right now. I'm just gonna not touch that. I saw my industrial demand fall a bit there, but I still have healthy demand, and that really changed things up. really healthy tax base we've got going here, especially commercial taxation. And I've probably even got some services here that I can still tweak. I mean, I am still, I'm still exporting. I'm still exporting more than 18 megawatts, which is of course earning me a bit of money, but it seems the calculation is not in favor of trying to export as much as possible. The best solution is probably just to lower my budget a bit. Yeah, as you guys can see in real time, that is increasing my profits per hour. So let's see if 70% is fine. That is actually pretty good. I've still got an excess of around 12, or yeah, sorry, it had to adjust. I've got a very small excess now, so I was probably a bit too aggressive there. We'll go for about 86 or something like that. But it did bring down the maintenance cost quite a bit, so I'm making good money now. We're going to put some of those extra profits to use by expanding the Chowder Bay Elementary School, because I just had a look at our education situation, and yeah, it's pretty bad. I'm gonna need to build some more schools, but I think as a start, just expanding the elementary school in here, ooh, that's a massive bump to happiness. Of course, it adds some extra costs as well, but that's probably worth it. We'll see this fill up in no time. So finally, after all these tweaks and changes, we've turned what I honestly thought would be an impossibly big deficit to fix into a small profit. We'll need to make it even bigger to have some sense of security moving forward. But I think the main issue to fix now is that we've got a lot of complaints about a lack of customers from many of our commercial establishments, and that's going to eat into their profits, and we can't have that because commercial taxation is pretty much the backbone of the Easthaven economy, so we're going to appease these folks as much as we can. And with this demand, I can feel the warm breath of greedy real estate developers in my neck. They're just looking to lurch forward and develop some more housing units. So, you know, I'm gonna bow to that demand, put on some music, and then we're gonna start expanding. So we've added two quite different sprawling suburban developments here. One which is, well, I guess it's very well planned, whether you like it or not, but in this case we've also got well manicured grass that is being taken care of. You know, we don't want that biodiversity. We don't want any bees to interrupt us while we're eating barbecue on our patio. So it doesn't really fit in with the remaining developments here, but oftentimes new developments just don't, and this caters to a different clientele altogether. Then we added this development here, which is, I think it's a little better integrated with the surrounding nature. It's a little more wild, and you know, the density is also just a little higher. It's still single family housing, but they're placed really close to each other, and you've got a small area with a pool in the backyard. Obviously, this did add some population to Pinewood Dale, but I mean, as long as it's low density, then it's not sufficient at all to meet our demand or any of the low customer complaints we're seeing. And we've even started to lose money now, and I'm pretty certain, I don't have the exact figures, but I think it's because we are losing tax revenue from our commercial establishments because they're unable to attract enough customers to really make a good profit. Some of them are probably going out of business. So something a little more drastic definitely needs to be done here in Easthaven County. And that pretty much leads me to an important question for you guys. What's the next step here? There's been several calls to build a new city somewhere on the map and make it more of a medium-sized city, so something that's bigger than Chowder Bay, maybe even has a few like actual skyscrapers. Where would we place that? Should we create a new island entirely? Should we maybe overhaul Chowder Bay and turn that city into a medium-sized American-themed city, and then we'll add additional smaller cities throughout the map? I would really love you guys' input, hear some of your thoughts, so that I've got some inspiration for where we're gonna take Easthaven County, because you know, we're not losing a ton of money, but the current situation of continuing only low density sprawl is probably not gonna work out, at least not if we're gonna revamp our economy quite a bit, get rid of a lot of this commercial. And I think with that open question, this is gonna be a wrap. It's been a ton of fun actually having to try and manage the game now, work with the economy, reduce some services, just actually trying to work with the game to get a good result. And I mean, I guess we're wrapping up the episode with a deficit, so things are definitely not perfect yet. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate all the support. I'm gonna wrap up with some cinematics as per usual, and I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye.